The sky turned black on a Tuesday morning in March 2047. Not the black of storms or smoke, but something far worse. Something alive. Elena Vasquez was drinking coffee in her small apartment in Houston when the first ships appeared. She worked for NASA as a propulsion engineer, and she had spent her whole life dreaming about contact with alien life. Now, as she watched the massive vessels block out the sun, she understood that some dreams were actually nightmares. The Valkyrie came without warning. Their ships were enormous, each one stretching several kilometers across the sky. They looked like insects made of crystal and metal, beautiful in a terrible way. Within hours, they had positioned themselves over every major city on Earth: London, Tokyo, New York, Moscow, Beijing, Mumbai. No place was safe. No place was hidden. The world's governments tried to make contact. They sent radio signals. They beamed mathematical equations into space. They offered peace. They offered friendship. The Valkyrie did not respond to any of it. Instead, they simply began taking what they wanted. Elena watched the news in horror as the aliens descended on mining sites around the world. They took gold, platinum, and rare earth minerals. They did not ask. They did not trade. They simply took, as if humanity did not exist. As if Earth was just another empty rock floating in space. When the military tried to stop them, the Valkyrie showed the world what true power looked like. Tanks melted under beams of purple light. Fighter jets fell from the sky like dead birds. Entire battalions vanished in seconds, leaving nothing but ash and silence. The aliens were tall, nearly 3 meters in height. Their bodies were covered in hard shells that looked like dark crystal. They had too many eyes and too many limbs. When they spoke, their voices buzzed like 1,000 insects talking at once. They did not speak to individuals. They spoke as one mind, one voice, one terrible will. They called themselves the Valkyrie Dominion. And they had conquered 1,000 worlds before Earth. Humanity was not special. Humanity was not even interesting to them. Humanity was simply the next meal, the next harvest, the next resource to be used and discarded. The taking of minerals was just the beginning. Soon, the Valkyrie began taking people. Helena lost her husband first. Marcus was a construction worker, strong and healthy. The Valkyrie valued strong workers. They took him from their apartment building in the middle of the night, along with 100 other men and women. Elena screamed and fought, but the aliens simply pushed her aside like she was nothing. She never saw Marcus again. A week later, they took her daughter. Little Sophia was only 8 years old. The Valkyrie had decided that human children could be trained as servants. They were small, easy to control, and they learned quickly. Elena begged on her knees. She offered herself instead. The aliens did not listen. They did not care. To them, Sophia was not a child. She was not a person. She was just inventory. Across the world, the story was the same. Families torn apart. Cities emptied. Millions of people vanished into the alien ships, taken to labor camps among the stars. Those left behind lived in constant fear, never knowing when the Valkyrie would return for them. But humanity was not completely broken. Not yet. In secret bunkers and hidden laboratories, the survivors began to plan. They knew they could not match the Valkyrie in open battle. The aliens were too powerful, too advanced. But humans had one thing the Valkyrie did not understand. They were willing to sacrifice everything for the chance to fight back. A coalition of scientists and soldiers developed a desperate plan. They had captured a small amount of antimatter from a research facility in Switzerland. If they could get it inside one of the alien ships, the explosion would be catastrophic. The only problem was getting close enough to deliver it. Elena volunteered for the mission. She had nothing left to lose. Her family was gone. Her hope was gone. All she had left was rage, cold and patient, burning like ice in her chest. The plan was insane. A small team would infiltrate a Velkari capital ship called the Throne of Silence. They would plant the antimatter device in the engine core and escape before the explosion. Everyone knew it was probably a suicide mission. Nobody cared Dot against all odds. They succeeded. Partly Dot Elena and her team managed to board the Throne of Silence through a cargo bay. They fought through corridors filled with alien guards. They lost half their team in the first 10 minutes. But they reached the engine core. They planted the device. And when it detonated, the explosion tore through the ship like fire through paper. The Throne of Silence fell from the sky. 3 kilometers of alien metal and crystal came crashing down into the frozen wilderness of Siberia. The impact shook the earth for 100 kilometers. The ship did not explode on impact. It simply lay there, half buried in ice and snow, broken and silent. Elena and 2 other survivors escaped in a stolen alien shuttle. They crashed in northern Russia and walked for 3 days through the frozen wasteland before finding help. Elena had burns on 60% of her body. She spent 4 months in a hospital. But she survived. The Velkari were furious at first. They considered punishing humanity for this act of defiance. But then they looked at the Throne of Silence, broken in the Siberian ice, and they made a calculation. The cost of repairing the ship was too high. The cost of continued resistance was annoying. Earth had been mostly harvested anyway. The remaining population was small and broken dot, so they left. Before departing, the Velkari broadcast a final message to every screen, every radio, every device on Earth. The buzzing voice of the hive mind echoed across the planet. We will return when you have bred enough to be worth harvesting again. You have perhaps 100 years. Use them to grow fat and numerous. We are patient. We are eternal. And we will be back. Then the alien fleet rose into the sky and vanished among the stars. They left behind a ruined world. They left behind broken cities and empty homes. They left behind millions of graves and billions of tears. And they left behind one thing they considered worthless trash, the Throne of Silence. A dead starship frozen in the ice, Elena stood in the ruins of Houston and looked up at the empty sky. The aliens thought they had broken humanity. They thought they had left nothing but sheep waiting to be slaughtered. They were wrong. Elena looked toward the east, toward Siberia, toward the crashed ship. And for the first time in months, she smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a woman who had lost everything and found a reason to keep living. The aliens had left them a gift. They just did not know it yet. 18 years had passed since the Velkari left Earth. The world was different now. Cities lay in ruins. Governments had fallen and risen again. People lived in smaller communities, farming the land and rebuilding slowly. But one thing had not changed, the memory of what the aliens had done, and the promise of what was coming. Elena Vasquez stood at the edge of the massive crater in Siberia, looking down at the broken starship. She was 53 years old now. Her hair had turned gray. Her body carried the scars of that day, 18 years ago, when she had helped bring the ship down from the sky. But her eyes were sharp, and her mind was sharper. The Throne of Silence lay before her like a fallen giant. 3 kilometers of alien metal and crystal, half buried in ice and rock. Parts of it had broken off during the crash. Other parts had been damaged by the explosion. But the main structure was still there. Still waiting. Elena was no longer just an engineer. She was now the leader of the Reclamation Coalition, a group formed from the survivors of Earth's governments, universities, and military forces. Their only goal was simple and impossible: make the alien ship fly again. They said it could not be done, said Jin Tanaka, the young man standing beside her. Jin was 30 years old, a genius with computers and mathematics. He had been born after the invasion, part of a generation that had never known a world without fear. They said the technology was too advanced, too alien. Elena nodded slowly. They were almost right. When we first opened this ship, nothing made sense. Their computers did not use binary code. Their engines ran on power sources we could not understand. Their navigation systems were designed for minds that think differently than ours. She turned to look at Jin. But we did not give up. Humans never give up. That is our greatest strength and our greatest curse. The work had started slowly. In the first year, they had simply tried to understand what they were looking at. The Velkari technology was beautiful and strange. Their power cores were made of living crystal that generated energy through quantum processes. Their weapon systems used focused gravitational waves. Their shields could absorb nuclear explosions, like they were nothing. Hundreds of scientists had died trying to understand these systems. Radiation killed some. Electrical accidents killed others. One team vanished completely when they accidentally activated a device that folded space itself. But for every person who fell, 2 more came to take their place. People walked for thousands of kilometers just for the chance to work on the ship. They came from every country, every culture, every background. They were united by loss and driven by rage. Elena remembered the early years well. The arguments, the failures, the long nights when success seemed impossible. But slowly, piece by piece, they had begun to understand that the breakthrough came when they stopped trying to copy the Velkari technology and started adapting it instead. The alien power cores were impossible to replicate, but human fusion reactors could be modified to work with them. The navigation systems were designed for hive minds, but Jin Tanaka wrote new software that could translate between human thoughts and alien hardware. The weapon systems were intact, and human engineers learned to operate them through trial and error. It was not elegant. It was not pretty. The rebuilt ship was a strange mix of alien beauty and human practicality. Cables and pipes ran along corridors that had once been smooth crystal. Human control panels sat next to alien interfaces. The engines hummed with a sound that was half Velkari and half Earth-made, but it worked. "Today is the day," Jin said, his voice quiet with emotion. 18 years of work, thousands of lives. And today we find out if it was worth it. Elena placed her hand on his shoulder. It was worth it no matter what happens. We did something impossible. We took what they threw away and made it ours. Even if this ship never flies, we proved that humanity cannot be kept down. They walked into the ship together. The corridors were busy with activity. Engineers ran final checks on every system. Pilots practiced in simulation chambers. Soldiers checked their weapons, human guns modified to fire alien ammunition. 2,000 people had been selected for this first mission. 2,000 out of millions who had volunteered. The bridge of the ship had been completely rebuilt. The original Velkari Command Center was designed for creatures with 4 arms and compound eyes. Now it had human chairs, human screens, and human controls. At the center stood Captain Marcus Cole, a tall man with gray in his beard and old pain in his eyes. Marcus had been a soldier during the invasion. He had fought in the streets of Chicago when the aliens came. He had watched his unit die around him. He still carried pieces of alien shrapnel in his spine, too close to important nerves to be removed. Every step he took was a reminder of what the Velkari had done. "Admiral Vasquez," he said formally, nodding to Elena. Over the years, she had earned the title through her leadership. "All systems are ready. The crew is in position. We are waiting for your order." Elena looked around the bridge. She saw faces young and old, men and women from every corner of the earth. She saw determination. She saw fear. She saw hope. Most of all, she saw hunger. The hunger for justice. The hunger for revenge. "We are not just testing a ship today," she said, her voice carrying across the bridge. "We are testing a dream. For 18 years, we have worked for this moment. Many of us lost family to the Volcari. Many of us carry scars that will never heal. The aliens thought they broke us. They thought we would sit here and wait for them to return and finish what they started." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But we are not broken. We are reforged. This ship was called the Throne of Silence. It was built to conquer and enslave. We have changed it. We have made it something new. From this day forward, this ship has a new name. She is the Wrath of Earth, and she will carry our answer to the stars." Marcus Cole nodded and turned to his crew. "Start the engines." The ship began to shake. Deep in the engine room, human fusion reactors fed power into alien crystal cores. The sound was like thunder mixed with music. The vibration ran through every deck, every corridor, every person aboard, outside. The people of the Coalition watched. Millions had gathered across Siberia, standing in the snow, looking at the ship that had consumed their lives for nearly 2 decades. Some prayed, some wept, some simply stood in silence. And then, slowly, impossibly, the wrath of Earth began to rise. Snow and ice fell away from her hull. The ground cracked beneath her. Her engines blazed with hybrid fire, half purple and half orange. She climbed into the gray Siberian sky, and the sound of her ascent echoed across the frozen land. Elena watched through the bridge, windows as the clouds parted around them. The blue of the sky darkened into the black of space. Stars appeared, more than she had ever seen before. And beyond them, somewhere in the darkness, the Valkyrie waited. Jin Tanaka was crying. Marcus Cole was smiling for the first time in years. The crew was cheering. Elena simply looked at the stars and whispered, "We are coming." The galaxy was larger than any human had imagined, and it was far more cruel. Captain Marcus Cole stood on the bridge of the Wrath of Earth, staring at a star map that showed thousands of systems. Red markers indicated Valkyrie territory. There were so many of them. The Dominion controlled over 40 star systems, each one containing dozens of planets. They had shipyards that could build warships by the hundreds. They had armies that numbered in the billions. Earth had one ship. "We cannot fight them directly," Jin Tanaka said, studying the same map. "Not yet. We need to learn. We need to understand who we are dealing with." Elena nodded from her seat nearby. Her role was no longer military command. That belonged to Marcus now. But she remained on the ship as the senior advisor, the voice of experience. The Valkyrie have been conquering worlds for 10,000 years. They have made enemies. Some of those enemies might still be alive. So began the learning. The first alien species they encountered was the Tyranni. They found them on a dead moon orbiting a gas giant, 300 light years from Earth. The Tyranni were massive creatures, standing 4 meters tall, their bodies made of what looked like living stone. Once they had ruled a powerful empire. Now, only a few thousand remained, hiding in underground caves. The meeting was tense at first. The Tyranni had learned to fear anyone who came from the stars. But when they saw the wrath of Earth, their reaction was strange. The eldest Tyranni, a being named Garoth, touched the hull of the ship with his stone hand and made a sound like grinding rocks. "This is a Valkyrie vessel," he said, his voice deep and slow. "But it smells of something else. Something angry. Something new." Marcus explained. He told Garoth about Earth, about the invasion, about the millions taken, about the ship left in the ice, about the 18 years of work. When he finished, Garoth was silent for a long time. "You rebuilt a ship your conquerors threw away," Garoth finally said. "You flew into the dark with no maps, no allies, no hope of victory." "We had hope," Marcus replied. "Humans always have hope." Garoth made that grinding sound again. The other Tarani joined him. It took Marcus a moment to realize they were laughing. "Hope," Garoth said. "We forgot that word long ago. Perhaps you can teach it to us again." The Tarani shared everything they knew. Velkari tactics, Dominion patrol routes, the locations of slave camps and mining operations. They were too few and too broken to fight themselves, but they could help those who still had the will. From the Tarani, the wrath of Earth traveled to the water world of Scythia. The Scythene were aquatic beings, their bodies flowing and graceful, their minds capable of telepathy. The Velkari had captured most of their people and used them as living computers. Their telepathic abilities forced to serve the hive mind. The remaining Scythene lived in the deep oceans, hiding from Dominion scanners. They were suspicious of the humans at first. But when Jin Tanaka offered to share human technology in exchange for their help, something shifted. A young Scythene named Lyra swam close to Jin, her large eyes studying him. "You feel different," she said, her voice flowing directly into his mind. "Your thoughts are loud, chaotic, but underneath the chaos there is something beautiful. You feel everything so deeply: joy, sorrow, rage, love. How do you survive such emotions?" Jin considered the question carefully. "We do not always survive. Sometimes the emotions break us, but sometimes they make us stronger. They remind us what we are fighting for." Lyra touched his hand with her flowing fingers. "The Velkari feel nothing. They think as one mind, cold and logical. They have forgotten what it means to love or hate or hope. Perhaps that is their weakness." The Scythene joined the growing alliance. Their telepathic abilities would prove valuable in battle, allowing for instant communication and coordination. They also knew how to disrupt the hive-mind connection, even if only for short periods. The third species was the Cathar. They were warriors tall and fast, with 4 arms and sharp claws. Once, they had conquered half a dozen systems through strength and honor. The Velkari had broken them completely. Their homeworld was now a slave camp. Their warriors had been scattered across the galaxy. Used as gladiators for alien entertainment, Marcus found a group of escaped Cathar on an asteroid mining station. They were thin, scarred, and half-mad from years of captivity. But when Marcus offered them weapons and a chance for revenge, something woke up in their eyes. The Cathar leader was named Vex. She was missing one arm and walked with a limp, but she still moved with deadly grace. "Why should we trust you?" she asked. "Humans are new to the stars. You do not know what you are fighting." Marcus looked at her directly. "You are right. We are new. We are young. We do not have your experience or your strength. But we have something else. We have a ship that should not exist, crewed by people who should be dead. We have fire in our hearts that will not go out. And we have a simple question for you. Do you want to die hiding in the dark? Or do you want to die fighting?" Vex stared at him for a long moment. Then she smiled, showing her sharp teeth. "I like you, human. You talk like a Cathar." She held out her remaining hand. "We will fight with you, and we will teach you how to kill Velkari with your bare hands." Word began to spread through the conquered systems. Stories about the strange new species that had come from nowhere. Stories about a ship made of Velkari metal and human art. Stories about people who had refused to accept slavery or death. On 100 different worlds, beings who had long ago surrendered to despair began to feel something new stirring inside them. It was small at first, just a flicker. But it grew with each story, each rumor, each whispered legend about the humans. The Velkari noticed too late. Their scouts reported strange activity among the remnant worlds. Communications they could not intercept. Ships moving in patterns they could not predict. Something was changing in their empire, and they could not understand what. The wrath of Earth returned to the Sol system after 1 year of exploration. The ship was battered from dozens of encounters with Dominion patrols. The crew was exhausted, but they came home with something more valuable than gold or weapons. They came home with knowledge, with allies, with a plan. Elena met Marcus in the observation deck as Earth appeared on the screens. The blue planet looked so small from here, so fragile, so precious. The Velkari have ruled for 10,000 years, Marcus said quietly. They have never been truly challenged. They have forgotten what it feels like to fear. Elena nodded. Then we will remind them. Behind them, the crew gathered. Humans, Tarani, Scythene, Cathar. Different bodies, different minds, but united by something the Velkari could not understand. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when hope met hatred and forged itself into something new. The shipyards floated in the darkness between stars, hidden among asteroids and cosmic dust. Here, far from Velkari patrol routes, humanity was building its answer to the Dominion. Elena Vasquez walked through the construction bay of the largest yard, watching sparks fly as workers welded hull plates together. The ship taking shape before her was called the Forge of Tomorrow. It was smaller than the Wrath of Earth, designed for speed rather than power. But it was entirely human-made, built using the knowledge they had gained from the captured Starship and their new allies. 3 years had passed since the knowledge they had gained from the captured Starship. Wrath of Earth first rose from the Siberian ice. In that time, everything had changed. The Tarani had taught humans how to forge metal alloys that could resist Velkari weapons. Their ancient smithing knowledge, combined with human engineering, produced armor stronger than anything Earth had built before. Tarani workers now stood beside human welders, their stone hands shaping metal with patient precision. The Scythene had revolutionized human navigation. Their telepathic abilities allowed pilots to feel the fabric of space itself, sensing dangers and opportunities invisible to instruments. Jin Tanaka had spent months working with Lyra to create neural interfaces that let humans share in this gift. Now, pilots could navigate through asteroid fields blind, guided only by the whisper of Scythene minds. The Cathar had transformed human soldiers. Vex ran training camps on hidden moons, pushing warriors beyond their limits. She taught them to fight without fear, to move without sound, to kill without hesitation. The humans who survived her training emerged as something new, harder, sharper, ready. But it was not just technology and training that grew. It was numbers. Refugees came from across the galaxy. Species the Velkari had crushed and forgotten. Some brought skills. Some brought knowledge. Some brought only their rage and their willingness to die fighting. All were welcome. All were needed. The final coalition, as they called themselves, now numbered in the tens of thousands. They had over 100 ships, ranging from massive carriers to swift fighters. Most were human-designed, but each one carried pieces of a dozen different cultures. Torani armor, Scythene navigation, Cathar weapons, and something purely human that held it all together. The Velkari finally noticed. A battle group of 20 warships was sent to investigate rumors of rebellion in the outer systems. The hive mind had grown concerned. Too many scouts had disappeared. Too many slave transports had been attacked. Something was happening, and the Dominion wanted answers. The Velkari hive captain leading the fleet was named the Voice of Silence. He had personally overseen the harvest of Earth 21 years ago. He remembered the small planet with its primitive inhabitants. He remembered how easily they had broken. He expected to find scattered rebels hiding in asteroids, easily crushed. Instead, he found the wrath of Earth waiting for him. Captain Marcus Cole stood on the bridge, watching the Velkari fleet emerge from hyperspace. Around him, his crew worked in focused silence. They had prepared for this moment for years. Every simulation, every training exercise, every sleepless night had led here. "They are hailing us," Jin reported. "The voice of silence demands our surrender." Marcus smiled grimly. "Let him speak. I want to hear what he has to say." The buzzing voice of the Velkari filled the bridge. "You are the ones who rebuilt our discarded ship. The insects who play with fire. Your defiance ends today. Surrender, and we may show mercy. Resist, and you will learn what true pain means." Marcus activated the response channel. "I remember you. You were there when your kind took my world. You took my friends, my family. You left us with nothing but ash and grief." "You remember correctly," the voice of silence replied. "And yet you still resist. You are either brave or foolish." "We are human," Marcus said simply. "That means we are both." He paused, then added, "But we are not alone." On his signal, 3 more ships emerged from hiding positions among the asteroids. The Forge of Tomorrow, the Silent Thunder, the Last Memory, each one crewed by humans and aliens fighting side by side, each one armed with weapons the Velkari had never seen. The voice of silence felt something strange, a tiny crack in the confidence of the hive mind. It was not fear, not exactly. The Dominion did not feel fear, but it was something close. 4 ships against 20, the voice of silence said. "Your mathematics is poor." "We learned from the best," Marcus replied. Fire. The battle that followed lasted 6 hours. It was chaos and beauty mixed together. Human fusion weapons tore through Velkari shields that had stopped nuclear bombs. Scythian pilots danced their ships through impossible maneuvers, avoiding fire that should have killed them. Cathar boarding parties cut through alien corridors, their war cries echoing through metal halls. Torani gunners fired with patient accuracy, each shot finding its mark. The Velkari fought well. They had 10,000 years of conquest behind them. Their ships were powerful, their soldiers numerous, their tactics refined by countless battles. 3 coalition ships were badly damaged. The Silent Thunder lost half its crew when a Velkari weapon breached its engine room. But the coalition did not break. They did not retreat. They fought with a fury the Velkari had never encountered. When one ship was damaged, another covered it. When one soldier fell, another took their place. They fought as if death did not matter. They fought as if winning was the only option. In the end, 17 Velkari ships were destroyed. 2 more were captured. Only one escaped, fleeing into hyperspace with a message for the Dominion. The voice of silence died on the bridge of his flagship when Vex and her Cathar warriors stormed through the door. His last thought, shared with the hive mind, was simple. They are not insects. We have made a terrible mistake. The hive mind heard. The hive mind remembered, and for the first time in 10,000 years, the hive mind felt something it could not name. The coalition broadcast a message across all frequencies, designed to reach every slave camp, every conquered world, every being living under Velkari rule. It was simple and clear. We are the humans of Earth. We are the Torani of the stone worlds. We are the Scythian of the deep oceans. We are the Cathar of the endless hunt. We are everyone the Dominion tried to break. And we are coming. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. Rise when you can. Hide when you must. But remember, freedom is coming. The Velkari will fall. Across the galaxy, beings who had known only slavery heard the message. Some wept, some laughed. Some began to plan. On 100 worlds, the fire of rebellion began to spread. Elena watched the stars from the observation deck of the Wrath of Earth. Jin stood beside her, his eyes distant as he processed reports from across their growing network. 300 ships now, he said quietly. More joining every week. The Dominion is panicking. They are pulling forces from the outer systems to protect the core worlds. Elena nodded. Good. That means they are scared. Scared enemies make mistakes. What happens next? Jin asked. Elena turned to look at him. She was 62 years old now. Her body was tired, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. Next, we remind them why they should have finished us when they had the chance. We go for the heart. We go for the overmind. She looked back at the stars, toward the distant glow of the Volcari home system. We end this. The crystalline moon hung in the void like a frozen tear, glowing with pale inner light. This was the heart of the Volcari Dominion. This was where the overmind lived, the ancient consciousness that connected every Velkari in the galaxy into one terrible purpose. For 10,000 years, it had guided the Dominion to victory after victory. It had consumed civilizations. It had crushed hope. It had made itself into a god. Today, it would learn fear. Fleet Admiral Marcus Cole stood on the bridge of the Wrath of Earth, watching the final coalition fleet emerge from hyperspace. 312 ships, humans, Turani, Scythene, Cathar, and a dozen other species who had joined the rebellion in the final months. Each ship carried beings who had lost everything to the Dominion. Each ship carried a promise of retribution. They are waiting for us, Jin Tanaka reported from his station. Over 1,000 Velkari warships between us and the moon. The Overmind is calling all forces home. Marcus nodded slowly. The Dominion had finally understood the threat. They had stripped their outer systems of defenses, pulled their fleets from conquered worlds, gathered every ship they could find to protect their god. It was not enough. Open a channel, Marcus ordered. All frequencies. I want the Overmind to hear this. The connection opened. Marcus felt the weight of attention pressing on his mind. The Overmind was listening, its vast consciousness touching every being in the system. This is Fleet Admiral Marcus Cole of the Final Coalition, he said, his voice steady and cold. We are not here to negotiate. We are not here to bargain. We are here to collect a debt. The Overmind's response filled his mind like ice water. You are insects who have learned to sting. We are eternal. We are infinite. You cannot destroy us. We have crushed 1,000 rebellions. We will crush yours. Marcus smiled. It was not a kind smile. 25 years ago, you came to a small blue planet. You took our resources. You took our people. You treated us like cattle. And when we dared to fight back, you left. You left us with nothing but ash and a broken ship. He paused, letting the memory burn in his heart. We took that broken ship and made it fly. We took your technology and made it ours. We took your conquered peoples and gave them hope. Now we are here, at the heart of your empire, with a fleet that should not exist. And you want to talk about who is eternal? He leaned forward. We are humans. We do not live 10,000 years like you. We live short lives full of pain and joy and loss. But we remember. We remember every person you took, every world you destroyed, every crime you committed in the name of your endless hunger. His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the void. And we never Forgive. The battle began. Coalition ships surged forward in formations they had practiced 1,000 times. Human tactical genius guided the overall strategy. Scythian telepaths linked every pilot and gunner into a single coordinated force. Taurani gunships moved like mountain avalanches, absorbing damage and dealing it back tenfold. Cathar assault shuttles, launched by the hundreds, carrying warriors who lived only for this moment. The Velkari fought with desperate fury. Their ships were powerful, their weapons devastating, their numbers still greater than the Coalition. They had ruled the galaxy for 100 centuries. They would not surrender it without a fight. The silent thunder fell first, broken by concentrated fire from 5 Velkari battleships. Then the last memory, overwhelmed by boarding parties when its shields failed. Ships on both sides died in flashes of light, each explosion marking the end of countless lives. Elena Vasquez coordinated the fleet from her tactical station, her eyes moving across displays that showed the flow of battle. She was 63 years old, too old for frontline combat, but her mind was as sharp as ever. She saw patterns in the chaos. She saw opportunities. "Marcus," she called out, "the Overmind is focusing too much power on defense. It is pulling energy from the outer fleet to strengthen shields around the moon. If we hit them now with everything we have, we can break through." Marcus understood. It was a gamble. Everything they had committed to a single strike. If it failed, there would be no second chance. He thought of his home, his family. The shrapnel still lodged in his spine. All the years of pain and anger and desperate hope. "All ships," he commanded, "execute final assault. For Earth, for every world they have taken, for everyone we have lost. Today we end this." The Coalition fleet moved as one. 300 ships converged on a single point in the Velkari defenses. The Overmind tried to respond, shifting forces, strengthening shields, but it was too slow. The beings it faced were not logical like it was. They did not calculate odds or weigh losses. They simply attacked with everything they had. The Wrath of Earth led the charge. The ship that had once been the throne of silence, rebuilt by human hands and fueled by human rage, tore through the Velkari line. Behind it came the Forge of Tomorrow and 100 other vessels, punching through the opening like a spear through flesh. The crystalline moon filled the viewscreen. Up close, it was beautiful in a terrible way. Light danced inside its structure, and voices whispered in the minds of everyone who looked upon it. The voice of the Overmind, vast and ancient and afraid. "You cannot do this," the Overmind said. Its voice cracked for the first time in its long existence. "Without us, the Velkari will fall into chaos. They do not know how to exist alone. You'll condemn an entire species to madness." Marcus did not hesitate. "You should have thought of that before you built your empire on the bones of others. Fire everything." The Coalition opened fire. Human nuclear weapons, enhanced by Taurani engineering. Scythian psychic disruptors that cut the Overmind's connection to its children. Cathar plasma lances that burned through crystal like it was ice. And something new, something human scientists had developed in secret. Gravitational bombs that collapsed matter into itself. The crystalline moon cracked. Light poured from the wounds. The Overmind's scream echoed across 40 star systems. A death cry that would haunt the dreams of every being who heard it for the rest of their lives. And then the moon shattered. Pieces of crystal flew in all directions. Some burning up against Coalition shields, others spinning off into the void. The light inside the fragments died slowly, like stars going out one by one. Across the galaxy, every Velkari suddenly found themselves alone. The voice that had guided them since birth, the presence that had connected them to every other member of their species, was gone. Some went mad immediately. Others simply stopped moving, unable to function without the Overmind's commands. Their ships drifted. Their weapons fell silent. The battle was over in minutes. The war that had lasted 10,000 years ended in a single day. Marcus Cole stood on the bridge of the Wrath of Earth, watching the debris field spread across space. Around him, his crew was silent. Torani wept with sounds like grinding stone. Sephine embraced each other in pools of water. Cathar raised their fists in victory salutes. Humans simply stood and watched, trying to understand that it was finally over. Elena's voice came through the communication system, tired but warm. "We did it, Marcus. We actually did it." Marcus shook his head slowly. "No, it is not over. The Velkari are broken, but they are not gone. 40 star systems full of beings who do not know how to live without a master. Billions of slaves who have forgotten what freedom means." He turned to face his crew. Humans and aliens who had fought and bled and died together. The war is over. Now the hard work begins. We need to help these worlds rebuild. We need to teach the Velkari how to live as individuals. We need to show everyone in this galaxy that there is another way. Jin stepped forward. That could take generations. Marcus smiled, and for the first time in years, it reached his eyes. Good thing humans are stubborn, then. We will be there as long as it takes. Not as conquerors. Not as masters. Just as friends who know what it means to rebuild from nothing. 100 years later, the Galactic Compact met for its annual celebration. Hundreds of species gathered on New Earth, a planet that had been terraformed from a dead rock into a garden world. They came from every corner of what had once been the Velkari Dominion. Now a community of free peoples working together. At the center of the capital city stood a museum. Inside, preserved behind glass, was a piece of scorched hull plating from the original Throne of Silence. Children of every species gathered around it, listening as a guide told the story. The story of a small blue planet. The story of a broken ship and a broken people who refused to stay broken. The story of hope and rage and the long road to freedom. The inscription on the display read, "They left us broken. We rebuilt. They called us primitive. We learned. They promised to return. We were waiting." Humanity, a young Velkari child, born free, reached out to touch the glass. "What does it mean?" she asked. What made them so different? The guide, an old human woman with kind eyes, smiled. "They never gave up," she said simply. No matter how dark things got, no matter how impossible the odds seemed, they always found a reason to keep fighting. They called it hope. And in the end, it was stronger than anything the Dominion could throw at them. The child nodded slowly, processing this idea. Then she looked up at the stars visible through the museum's crystal ceiling. "I think I understand," she said. "Hope is not a feeling. It is a choice." The old woman's smile widened.